Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I will be continuing on my reading of Dragon Ball Z all the way through. I've got all of the volumes and I am currently on volume 6. If you haven't seen the previous videos, I kind of started doing this when Akira Toriyama passed, and Brandon and Sean wanted to do an episode about him. I didn't really know anything about him other than Dragon Ball Z, and I have Dragon Ball Z because Jack, my stepson, likes it, but I've never read it. It's just on the shelves, and I had like preset opinions. And then Sean and Brandon like filled me in more on like who Toriyama is as an artist. And I got really interested, and I said, I know Dragon Ball Z is probably not the best for someone like me. I should be reading Doctor Slump or Dragon Ball itself or something like that. But I've got Dragon Ball, so we're going into it. And my opinion of it has been up and down through the videos, depending on if it's in a character-driven part or in an action sequence. And that's probably going to continue throughout the series. So just pre-warned people who haven't come to this before that my relationship with this is up and down. This book is more interesting to me because there's still like a good combination of like the character driven stuff and the cartooning driven stuff versus the action stuff, which I like less. They've now everyone's gone to a different planet, the Namek, and we have the Namekians versus the Frisians and the Saiyans. A lot of this actually really reminds me, and I see that this must have been massively influential on Robert Kirkman's Invincible. A lot of this feels like Invincible to me as it gets more intergalactic. Personally, I enjoy Invincible better, but I can see like the DNA of that coming from here. And I do really appreciate watching how Toriyama's upping the stakes and growing the story, and I really think all of that's masterful. I thought in the first three volumes that we've now moved on from the Dragon Balls altogether, and it's taking on this other main theme about this intergalactic war against the Saiyans or whoever. I thought that they had like wasted all the Dragon Balls and Piccolo was dead, and they kind of took that off the plate and were just keeping Dragon Ball Z as the name because that's what people know. But actually, now that we're on Namek, it's like, well, anyone can create Dragon Balls, and so we're running around looking for new Dragon Balls. And that's, I think like upping the stakes while also kind of putting in a Deus Ex Machina that's probably not needed. I really enjoy this scene where Gohan gets mad. I think this when you have a character who's more cartoony and less of action figure is when Toriyama really succeeds. So seeing the smaller, more Mario proportion characters like Gohan go off is really fun. This is also a really good example of it here, where you have this character, Dodoria, getting in a fight with Kuririn. Sorry, I'm going to get lambasted by the Dragon Ball fans for all this. But I think when you have a character like this who's like fat and more cartoon proportion, the action comes across better. Like he's better at the poses. Things don't feel so stiff. They don't feel like those little plastic muscle man figures like just being posed. But when you get the return of someone like Vegeta, then you get that more action figure look, and I think the poses get more stiff and whatnot. But yeah, Vegeta's back. Holy crap! Like he still seems to be one of the main drivers of the story. But we're also getting a sense that, like with Piccolo, he might have there might be a shared enemy here with the stopping the Frisians. And so that's, I think, making an interesting ongoing story too, is that people's sides aren't very clearly defined. You'll think they're a bad guy, but then they can be helpful in moments. And so I think that that's like something that's pretty cool in the story that you wouldn't get in a lot of stories, this swapping of sides regularly. A convenient fact of the Saiyans in here is that the more they battle, the stronger they get. So that's like, if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger type of thing. And that sets up the part of the Dragon Ball that I think is most easy to make fun of, is that there's just always kind of one more level it can go to. There's always one more I've got a force field. Well, I figured out how to break your force field. Well, I figure out how to make my force field stronger. And that like childish one-upping structure gets a little bit old with Dragon Ball. I think there's some manga that handle it a little bit better when they're grounding it, like say like Vagabond, where it's grounded in a historical figure trying to reach perfection in his chosen field. Even though it still has the same structure, it feels more adult. In this one, it does feel very like the childish, like I got a better laser than you, and that was kind of, I expected that going in. We learn in here that Master Frieza is someone who destroyed the Saiyan planet of Vegeta. So, like I said, you're getting this more interesting, like large scale galactic battle between people that Goku and his friends are getting pulled into. So that's the masterful expansion of scale and scope that I am appreciating quite a bit. And there's some pretty gnarly, like for a kid's book, there's some pretty gnarly, like this scene here where this guy gets hit with the blast by Vegeta. Like that's a crazy brutal drawing right there. And again, that's Toriyama when he has a more rubbery character. Really excelling. It's a combination of his rubbery characters and his penchant for doing really cool effects coming together, I think. This volume does a better job, I think, of jumping back and forth between the action sequences like that, where you get this brutal, like, face being blasted, and the more cartoony, like, sequences where you just have character development. So you have Bulma here putting up this weird, like, capsule house. And there's a lot more in this one as well, where you're getting to see some of the scenery, like we are on a different planet, and you get to see what some of their villages look like. You get to see what some of their buildings look like. And I think that's cool. I actually quite like his designs. It just feels like, and my standard idea of Dragon Ball is that they're always like out in a desert wasteland with craters like punching each other. And a lot of the art is that, but when we go into these areas that have environment designs, I really like the environment designs, and I'd like to see more of that. At this point, I think the Friezians have 5 Dragon Balls. We've got Vegeta's now got a 6th Dragon Ball, and so it's become like that's this plot arc that's, I'm sure, going to be 3 or 4 volumes, is chasing down these 7 and these 3 groups kind of fighting over it. There's also some like just pretty funny stuff in this book. Wait, the Great Elder? Who's the Great Elder? The parent of all people on Namek, the lone survivor of the terrible drought and giver of life to all of us. I'm the 108th great child of the Great Elder. The lone... Wait, how do you people have children? Oh, we lay our eggs through our mouth. How else? And then, like, yeah, how else? The Great Elder must be a woman. Woman? What's a woman? So, like, cool world building, seeing people who have, like, just different biological processes, building different cultural assumptions, but also just some good, like, banter back and forth. Like, we lay our eggs through our mouth. How else? That's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. And I think, we just get sidetracked by the action sometimes. I don't know if it's the case in Dragon Ball itself. I haven't read that, but it seems like it's going to be a repeated theme that everyone's always waiting for Goku. He's kind of always late to the party, and he's always like training and like always late to the party because he needs to train a little harder. I'm curious to see if that's just part of his character, like it's part of Peter Parker, Spider-Man, that he's always late, or if that goes away. I'm not sure. Then we get the return of everyone that got killed off in Volume 3 or 4 in the big fight with Vegeta, the first major story arc. And I didn't feel those deaths very potently because I haven't read Dragon Ball, so it's really just a bunch of people I don't know very well. Now they're showing that there may be a way, we could collect these Dragon Balls and we can bring them back. I kind of liked I liked the removal of the Deus Ex Machina of being able to bring everyone back. So I'm a bit disappointed to see that we're headed towards these characters all coming back to life. I know from like a writing for like popular people, like a character, you want to bring them back, but I like a book, like I think that's one of the things I like about how Kirkman writes is usually when people die, they're dead. There's like actual stakes in his books, and this one feels like all of the upping of the stakes that was put into Volume One. A lot of that's being torn down as these Deus Ex Machina mechanisms come back. And then we get another big fight sequence here where we get Vegeta versus this Zarbon character. So this is the stuff I don't like these big muscle men that Toriyama's not great at drawing, standing out in, again, barren wastelands, just kind of hubris, shouting at each other, and talking about like the power, to give full scope to my power. You see, I must transform, but the form I must take is ugly, and I am so fond of beauty, if it was my choice was between ugliness and death. And I just thought that was like a silly thing to put on this character. And then you see the transformation into this like ugly lizard creature. So just those are kind of the silly, like childish stakes, I think. Like his weakness is he turns ugly. Again, we're seeing like Vegeta struggling and having to continue to level up. So it seems like he's starting to maybe become an ally, as he has like your enemy of my enemy is my friend, that kind of thing, which will make the story interesting. Then we get to meet a bunch of new characters here. We have a character that looks just like Piccolo named Nail. We meet the Great Elder, which definitely comes across as a male character. And then we're also meeting a child called Dende. And that's basically the end of the volume. So it seems like a bunch of new important characters are being introduced at the end of this one. And that always, like I said, with this series, anytime we're introduced like to character-driven stuff is when I'm really enjoying it. So I'm excited to see how all of these groups of characters interact going forward. And I do think that this volume, unlike the first kind of story arc where it really felt like character build stuff and then just fight, this kind of second storyline seems to have a little bit better balance between the two, and I'm hoping that kind of balance between the two will continue to be juggled more expertly as the series goes on. So right now I'm kind of like on an up about Dragon Ball Z, and we'll see if it just goes into 2 volumes of fighting from here and I have a down again. I don't know, but that's where we're at with it. So we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna get all 25 of these.